I just want to make sure that everything goes online without it.
So as soon as you're ready, just hang up, hang up the phone, and I give you the hand signal.
Okay. Yeah, we're about to do that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay. So now.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Go. Welcome to Therapy Cable, and this is our weekly live presentation on personality disorders. We usually start about 5 p.m. Today we had some technical difficulties, but we got it going. So we'll be here another half an hour talking about personality disorders. And in this case, what I would like to really focus on 2 questions that we have received. Number 1, do people have more than one personality disorder, and what do we do with that? And number 2, what are some of the issues and triggers that can come up around holiday stress and with holidays that are looming or pending? And what can people do to perhaps mitigate and alleviate some of the unpleasant experiences that come up in relationships with people with personality disorder? So let's address those 2 questions. Number 1 is about multiple personality disorders. Yes, that is possible. That's not uncommon, and that some people who have personality disorders, they can have more than one. Especially the more probability lies with the cluster B, personality disorders which are dramatic, emotional. So we could have people who are on the borderline spectrum also exhibit narcissistic personality or histrionic, antisocial personality traits or styles and features, and even 2 full-blown personality disorders, such as at times narcissistic and borderline, and which is quite a dangerous combination as well. And I would say any combination really makes the intensity and elevates the danger of the situation. And by danger, what I mean is really the, if you will, the dysfunction, the perhaps the difficulty of dealing with the individual and resolving the problems in the relationship and continuing a healthy relationship. So another cluster 2, cluster C, that has to do with the fearful, anxious personality disorders such as obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, avoidant personality disorder, or dependent personality disorder. You could certainly also develop a person could develop a couple of these personality disorders, and again, it could be an avoidant with OCD or CPD. I'm sorry, not OCD. OCD is a different category and different type of disorder, and or dependent and perhaps even avoidant, because they're not incompatible. They can happen. They can occur together. Even though the ideology has some discrepancies or differences, but circumstantially, you could have someone who has more or less developed these tendencies. Now, again, also with the cluster A, with paranoid and schizotypal, if you think about it, someone with schizotypal or schizoid personality disorder, they could also be paranoid very much. So, in fact, paranoia and paranoid personality traits can exist in the other disorders from cluster B and C. Someone with borderline personality can have paranoid personality as well, and or again avoidant and paranoid that can go together. I would say less so as a combination for schizoid and schizotypal, even though it's quite difficult to really objectively separate and delineate between those personality disorders if one has both. So, but bottom line, I think that's a good explanation. So far, a brief explanation for the fact that yes, it is true that people can have multiple personality disorders, and it makes the situation even more difficult to deal with. And if you have watched some of our videos on Therapy Cable, including explanation of cluster A, cluster B, and cluster C personality disorders, and specifically each personality disorder within each cluster, then you are equipped with some possible solutions and strategies in order to deal with those, especially difficult personality disorders, specifically if they are combined. So please feel free to go to therapycable.com, search for cluster A, cluster B, cluster C, or personality disorders, both singular and plural personality disorders, and see what you can learn from those videos. Now, let's move on with the second question. We have a pretty good time in order to deal with specifically in depth with what to do around holiday stress or any type of stress. But the fact that I'm emphasizing holiday stress is because of the fact that like many circumstantial times or triggers or stimuli or reasons that exist, holidays too fall into that category of circumstances that increase the probability of stress, and therefore also for a personality disorder to be triggered and to be activated. Now, why? Because holidays are particularly a very significant phase of our life. Whether it is, right now as we are going through the Christmas holidays and the pending New Year holiday after that, and the ceremonies, activities, gatherings, planned activities and actions, events that are supposed to happen, or any other type of a holiday that is coming up. Usually people arrange their existence, their lifestyle, their schedules, their work, family time around this type of a important, significant chunk of event in their lives. Whether they have, for example, for the holidays, this right now, the Christmas and New Year holidays, whether they have worked hard the entire year, perhaps 11 months, 10 months, 11 months, almost 12 months now, within the year, and looked forward toward this time as a perhaps maybe time to relax a little bit or celebrate important accomplishments in their lives, perhaps even look forward to exchanging some gifts, receiving or giving some gifts, because that can also be very symbolic and meaningful in terms of expressing one's gratitude and appreciation, as well as receiving that gratitude and appreciation. And really putting a lot more meaningfulness into a person's life. It's the ability to come to an almost like that end line, the finish line of a journey that in this case would be like a 12-month journey and kind of a fiscal or annual stretch of time that has allowed us to revolve all our understanding, all our little tasks, goals, objectives that we have put in our calendars and our phones and our in our life, basically on month-to-month, week-to-week, and day-to-day basis. It comes to a culmination. It comes to a point where we really want to re-examine and assess our life, and with that comes that meaningfulness in terms of, have I been, we ask ourselves those questions, how was this year? Have I been successful? Have I accomplished some of the things that I wanted to accomplish this year? How far more do I have to go in order to achieve the goals that I have set out for myself to achieve? Those questions are important, they're significant. Our mind, at least, whether consciously or subconsciously, has been racing toward this type of a chronological review and experience. We know that we have an internal clock. So as living organisms, having one of the most advanced and intelligent minds in this world among all living organisms, as human beings, we are equipped with that type of a faculty that understands time, understands planning, and organizes and manages millions of tasks in our lives around this concept of keeping time, following time, being on time, tracking time. So time is very important, therefore also the significant events and phases in our lives that allow us to create some meaningfulness out of that experience of time are very important. And within that comes this heightened desire to prove to ourselves and others that our more or less our effort is worth it. Our efforts that we have put in our past, in recent past, basically the last year, are worthwhile. They have been worthwhile. They are worth it, and they make sense. And we should continue remaining on track. So this is where our psychic energy is really gravitating toward, that meaningfulness, encapsulating this concept of effort and time and human experience as it relates to our whole chronology of living. And everybody is, again, consciously and subconsciously aware of this chronology that we call age. We know that we are aging. We know that despite of our particular age number, whether we are young or old, we have a certain number of years behind us and a certain of years in front of us. So the effectiveness, the efficiency, the power that we feel internally and exert externally in our lives in order to deal with that, our position in our own life, in our own life's chronology, is of very, very significant value, and we're constantly striving to prove that to ourselves and others. Therefore, here during these holidays, the facing this type of a challenge in our own life experience can lead to very much conflictual situations, because, as you can imagine, every human being with their given composition of everything we talked about is really eager to do it their own way. Everybody has, and that's what we call identity and personality. So given a very specific identity and personality that people harbor, they want to assert themselves in very specific ways. And so part of that, what I mean by specific ways, is the way a person feels, the way a person thinks, the way a person reasons and behaves and interacts with the society around them, with members of the society that are important to them, friends, loved ones, family members, co-workers, acquaintances. So, and because of the diversity that exists between these types of very unique personalities and identities that everybody harbors for themselves and want to assert, ultimately conflict is inevitable. These personalities come to a very intense opportunity of conflicting with each other and clashing at times, because everybody is really eager in this last few days and moments of the year when we are striving to powerfully assert ourselves and make life meaningful, to kind of be ourselves, to completely feel like we are good, we are okay, we have made it, everything is fun, everything is working out, and we are basically fully our own self. Um, and through that assertion of a full holistic sense of self, then we can um, become less tolerant toward things that don't go our way, toward ways and strategies and tactics or uh, you know approaches that other people may take toward the same exact phenomena. Such as, let's say, just give an example, somebody who may be quite eager to decorate a Christmas evening, or determine the order of gifts that are supposed to be handed out, or determine the type of food that needs to be on the table for this event. Because everybody has a certain connection to all these objects around us that we use and utilize throughout the day. And again, each and every tool and object and even people that we interact with on a daily basis, they have symbolic meanings to us. And we want to arrange them in a very specific order that meets our demands. And if we are talking about, let's say, specific personality disorder, such as a narcissistic personality. So somebody with a high level of narcissism, who truly believe that they are to be appreciated, valued, and put on a pedestal, and kind of admired and revered, and they believe that they have given a gift to the society and to the human beings by coming to this world, but by being alive. And they think that they're above everybody else. They have such a high regard for themselves that they expect a lot, specifically during these times of holidays and again, self-assertion. So their level of expectation in regards to what they want to receive from other people is going to be heightened. It's not a regular day. It's not just a usual every day. It could be May 25th, for instance, or June 4th, or whenever of the day of the year. No, this is Christmas. This is the holidays, one of the most important holidays that people experience. So there is a set of expectation that somebody with narcissistic personality goes in with in interacting with everybody around. Now, another person with, let's say, a different personality, such as, let's say, antisocial personality disorder, they may even be ridiculing and humiliating everybody else around them, because they, again, regarding a Christmas time or the holiday season as part of the social, societal set of norms and rules and regulations, somebody with antisocial personality may just disregard everything and really be offended even during these times, because something in them is being re-triggered in terms of the rules of society, and who are the people, who are these authorities who come and determine what holiday is good and what holiday is not good, or what time of the year deserves some celebration and what other times of the year don't. So within the inner dynamic of a person with antisocial personality, you may see that they are kind of irked by this throughout this season, and they may even act out even further with their anti-authority, oppositional defiance, and just basically rule-breaking, rule-bending, but specifically rule-breaking, and more manipulative tactics in dealing with the people around them. And then again, so another example, I don't want to go through all the personality disorders and all the clusters, but just to give you one more example, people who isolate to some extent, whether it is schizoid, schizotypal, paranoid, and even at times borderlines, and even the avoidant personality disorders, all those individuals may feel a little bit more stressed because there is this added demand from the environment and from people around them to get them engaged in even more interaction, interpersonal interaction, that they usually shy away from. People who have paranoia, people who are avoidant, people who have schizoid or schizotypal, they may feel pressured and kind of pushed unnecessarily toward social engagement that they generally dislike and have a difficulty with. So that's the reason really why holiday stress can actually trigger this underlying condition. And based on that, what happens is that people just generally end up probably fighting and entering into these conflicts with each other or against each other, and have less tolerance for each other's peculiarities and deficiencies, and as a result, end up perhaps distancing themselves even more from one another. And so what do we do? So let's talk about the solutions that people may have. What I would suggest really is that if we approach these times, the holiday times and these stressful times and situations with a little bit of a foresight, I would say, a sense of anticipation, but a positive anticipation. So basically, really the focus here is to increase our tolerance and understanding, and also just keep focusing on the positive aspect of the times that we are going through, meaning harboring a celebratory disposition toward conflict, toward possibilities of disagreements. Somebody may be at the end of the rope, somebody may be highly stressed due to other types of stressful demands during this time, such as running multiple tasks, having to deal with multiple goals and multitasking, and not having enough time or energy or resource to deal with the demands of their work or family, and again being equipped with more or less answering the demands of holiday stress. Therefore, people may be more or less on a short fuse, where they are impulsive, reactive. They have less capacity for stress tolerance, so therefore they may just instantaneously say the wrong thing. They may be a little bit too sensitive toward everything. They take things personal. They may have their hopes kind of crushed, or they become disappointed about certain things that they had hoped would happen. So having known these types of possibilities, what we can do, all of us have experienced more or less a set of these memories in the past, where we have gone through multiple, Christmases and New Year's and other types of holidays. What we can do is remind ourselves over and over again on a daily basis that we are going through a particularly challenging time. However, it can run very well. It can actually, even if it is not perfect and full of some strife or conflict or more or less probably some debates and arguments and disagreements and basically missed opportunities. Despite all those facts, ultimately it's a time for celebration. It's a time for appreciation, for gratitude. Where people can ultimately look at the bigger picture. That everybody deserves a break. Everybody deserves some pat on the shoulder. Everybody, as a species, as a community, as members of the society and a group of what we call human beings. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to each other. Ultimately, what's the meaning of life? We're not just robots. It's not just we don't just live for productivity. We don't work to live. That's not the idea. We have to first live and make life meaningful. So that's the main thing. I'm getting a call. Maybe that's a question. Let's go to the first. Yes, sir. How can I help you? Hello. Okay. So, oh yeah. So we are getting a question from one of our viewers. Let's see. Dawn asks, "I'm confused on how to stop being a victim. I'm confused about going no contact, and I'm confused on why they hate independent partners so much." Okay, so that's a good question that we can answer. Paid enthusiast asked, "Could someone with able heal or something heal if only they put in the effort to strengthen self-esteem?" Okay, that's a possible question too that we can answer. James asked, "Are people with BPD more prone to infidelity?" Very good. And another question by Don: "If they're the bad guys, why does everyone else lionize, support, side with, and worship them?" I think. Okay. So lots of questions. So let's go through them. So I hope that we kind of went through good review of personality disorders getting triggered during this time and what we can do with them. Just have more tolerance, focus more on the positive. You owe it to yourselves and others to just appreciate and really look at the brighter side of life. You've done enough for about 12 months looking at the painful side of life. So just take these few weeks and celebrate it, even just by yourself, with yourself. You can owe it to yourself. So let's go through these questions again and answer them. So how to stop being a victim, and why the partners may hate independent partners so much. So what happens is there's something called, that's a very good question, there's something called drama triangle. Drama triangle. So it's a triangle, basically three corners that of what we call positions within a relationship. Three possible positions we can take that ultimately defines how drama is created and maintained, and it becomes a circular movement between these three positions, and people get caught within this circular drama reiteration and drama experience, and they don't get out of it. It becomes exhausting. So let's go through that quickly, because this question really brought up one of the positions. This question is about the victim position, how to stop being the victim. Why do we even go into the position of a victim? That's the first question that I have. We have a tendency, so more or less, let me share that with you in terms of why these three positions exist and what they are. So the first position is the position of a victim. The second one is the position of the perpetrator. The third one, the position of the rescuer. So because we all as human beings are unequal in our in relationship to our positions of power with each other. People don't have equal power toward each other. One person is a little bit more powerful than the other. We'll get into the depth of it at a later time, but basically, let's say somebody is more attractive, someone has more money, another person has a more physical stamina, another person has a better higher intelligence or wisdom, another person is smarter, the other person is again better looking, whatever it may be. All those attributes, they lead to a combination of more or less power. And so when people are feeling this inequality, every human being generally struggles with this notion of inequality and ultimately leads to a sense of injustice in their relationship. So people feel they're not being fairly treated. And as such, as a result of this unfair treatment within multiple different interactions, a person may feel that they're losing their power and being either, kind of aggressively dealt with, unjustly dealt with, or even bullied, or even abused to a certain situation. And all those feelings and sensations lead to a position of victimhood. So what is a self-perception of seeing oneself as the victim at the receiving end of the injustice, and the other person on the other end, which we naturally call a perpetrator. So we feel that an injustice has been perpetrated upon us, with us as a victim, and our partner who is perpetrating this injustice and exercising this injustice as the guilty party that is basically exerting this unjust power over us. And we ultimately end up communicating about it like that and describing our partner as such and ourselves as such. So you may hear a lot of times that, just like this person mentioned, as a, they're behaving as a victim, and how can they stop being a victim? Because that's how they describe themselves, more or less, that they are being unjustly treated. And then they describe their partner as the perpetrator. Now, what happens within that drama triangle is that once the person who is describing themselves as a victim is blaming, projecting, and or labeling the other partner as a perpetrator, and putting guilt and shame on this spouse, the spouse on the receiving end of that label, being labeled a perpetrator, does not want to stay in that position of being labeled as the bad guy, more or less. So what they do generally is they switch to a different position, the position of the rescuer, meaning rather than more or less taking on that role of, yes, I am the bad guy, if that is how you see me, then let's call it that way. I'm the bad guy, and if you feel that I'm unjustly treating you, then we are not made for each other. Then probably we should separate, rather than thinking about a possible incompatibility or dissolution. What they end up doing is either threaten with leaving, which can come from both ends, especially as a victim. A lot of times victims just threaten with leaving the relationship, even without leaving the relationship, and or the partner, the perpetrator, labeled partner, for the fear of losing the partner or being abandoned or rejected, they switch to the rescuer position. So they come to the rescue of the victimized feelings of their partner and reiterate and assert their more or less hope for the relationship to continue, with the condition that they're also willing to change their behavior. Meaning what they do, and at times it can be fabricated or fake, they apologize, even if they don't mean it, they apologize. And sometimes they do mean it, but even if they mean it, they have put themselves in the position of the rescuer, leading to the reaffirmation and confirmation of the victim's almost righteous sense of their victimhood, and validate their victimhood. And but because it's not the whole story, this black and white depiction and assessment of the relationship into two complete distinct categories of victim versus perpetrator is not really the whole story, because also both parties have been most likely hurt and feel the pain and would like to get some validation. The person who switched from perpetrator to the rescuer position now would ask for some kind of reparation. they too would at times kind of slide into the victimhood position and express their need for reparation. They would express that they too have been hurt. They too deserve some kind of a just behavior or fair, kind of a approach from their partners. So it's going to kind of flip-flop. The person who became the rescuer now is going to somehow manipulate their way into a victim position and force their partner who was in the victim position to feel as a perpetrator so badly and so painfully that they too are willing to shift into a rescuer position and come to the rescue of this partner now. So it goes back and forth. So as you can see, this is how the cycle starts and keeps continuing, and nobody gets out of this, and the drama is intensified and escalated even further because they constantly pendulate between shifting into or sliding into the victim position, shifting into the rescuer position, and flipping back and forth without wanting to really remain in that perpetrator position, because that doesn't feel good. It feels very guilt-ridden, and nobody likes guilt. Nobody wants to put up with that type of a label and being accused of having done something horribly. So how do we stop that? Basically, what we have to do is two things. Number one is we have to stop self-victimization. So rather than putting ourselves into the position, the weak position of, oh, I am the one who is being unjustly treated, therefore, because that becomes a conditional mindset and a conditional sentence and a demand proposition, therefore, you have to change your behavior and you have to repair the relationship. You have to do something to remedy the situation because I have been unjustly treated. We have to stop that mindset. That's that self-victimization. What can we do? We have to do self-care, meaning rather than expecting our partner to come to our rescue or atone for their actions and behaviors and their seeming attacks on us or aggression toward us, what we can do is separate these two principles, meaning we can expect our partner to do some work on themselves. We can talk about it differently and a separate timeline, more or less, without making it conditional to my self-repair, to our self-repair. So this is how we stop self-victimization. That's half of the story. The other half of it is that we have to do our own self-care, meaning if I feel that I am not getting the share part of a conversation or relationship or even goods and services, then I have to take care of myself. For instance, let's say if I'm feeling that I'm not being rewarded for the effort that I put in, I have to work on self-rewarding behaviors. The examples abound, and we can go through those examples at a later time to give more specific ways and examples for people to figure out what to do. But generally, the idea is self-care. So rather than expecting your partner to take care of you, you have to take care of yourself. That's going to lead to more self-differentiation, self-reliance, independent way of living life as a single human being, basically a person. By single, I'm not referring to marital status, but just like a single entity. So that's one part of it. And the second part of it is to not jump into rescuing our spouses or partners or whoever that person is that we are dealing with. So if we are blamed, that's the key part. if we are blamed as a perpetrator, as someone who has done unjust, unfair treatment onto others, we have to examine that very carefully. First of all, for its veracity, for its truthfulness. Maybe there is some truth to that fact, right? Maybe it is a fact that we are overlooking. So what we can do is get third-party counsel. So rather than just relying on the assessment from our partner, whether or not we have hurt them, first of all, a inventory would be very helpful. Taking inventory, listening to the partner, writing down their points of contention or assertion, and thinking through it. Maybe there is a possibility that we have done wrong, and kind of that, doing that self-examination. And then after going through that inventory, even if we believe that no, we have done everything right, truly believe in that rather than just kind of fooling ourselves, but we truly believe, like we check every box, basically go through all the actions and everything we have done and do the thorough self-inventory, self-examination, still truly believe that we have done every single thing right, then we should take that list to a third party and run that by the third party to get a little bit more objective or a third view, someone who is more independently looking from outside in and can examine the situation, maybe or provide some insight for our actions. So after having done that, if we then come to an understanding that yes, we have done something wrong, then we should take responsibility for that. We should hold ourselves accountable and take responsibility for our mistakes, for wrong actions, and apologize for the, not in order to rescue the other person, but apologize because we ourselves want to feel more whole and holistic and complete and integral to our own sense of self as a human being. I want to be internally sure that I'm not living with a fake personality. I want to be internally genuine because that makes me feel better and helps me sleep better at night, not because of other people. So it's actually very selfish reasons that we want to be genuine, authentic, and take responsibility and accountability. It helps us become better, more whole, more integral human beings. And by that I mean basically matching and congruence between our inner world and outer world, between who we profess we are and who we truly are. And that lowers discrepancy in our sense of being, of who we are and experience the world around us, and leads to more peacefulness inside. But so again, after having done all that inventory and examination, getting a third-party objective review, and having done a self-accountability, and then come to the point that we truly believe that, okay, I'm going to stand by my actions and the words I have said. I truly believe that they have not been extreme, they have not been insulting or aggressive or toxic, but there's a lot of truth to and good intentions as well as good actions and behaviors, basically carrying reparatory behavior around those actions that have been aligned with my true sense of self, and that is who I ultimately am and want to be and want to continue to be as a human being. We have to stand by it, meaning we should not run to the rescue and again pretentious rescue of our partner, leading them to believe that I think I did something wrong, whereas I truly don't think I did something wrong. So in that assertion of communicating to the partner that we are standing very firm and staying our ground, and basically standing our ground and also sticking very firmly to what we have said or what we are doing, You're sending the right message that, I'm not going to continue this cycle of drama, triangle, switching back and forth. This is who I am, I stand by it, and I profess that this is the person I would like to continue to be. These are my values, this is my value system, and I'm going to live by it. And now you have a choice as a partner to make an assessment for yourself, whether or not myself, or this relationship, we are good for you. So without, again, threatening a dramatic exit or, disconnection and dissolution, just communicating the realities of perhaps, it's time to kind of end this ineffective and unhealthy codependency of one another, because I'm not going to change my behavior. I am who I am. These are my behaviors, and I truly believe that these are, my code of conduct that I want to live by. And if they are clashing with the code of conduct that you have, by no means any one of us should feel a victim or being coerced into something they don't want to be by their partner. Therefore, perhaps the dissolution is called for, is a better approach, and perhaps not. So, standing the ground, being firm in your conviction after you have done a thorough self-examination, so that you truly and thoroughly believe that you can live with those decisions, is the key to not victimize others and not to become a victim. So we have gone about 45 minutes, and just really, and actually this past 18 minutes has been answering really just one question about how to stop being a victim. We have had other questions, but we will continue that later time. A lot of questions. Thank you, everybody, for those questions. We will definitely continue next Thursday. That is the 21st. Next Thursday, 21st, on time at 5 p.m. from 5 to 6. So we can prolong that if necessary, answering all these questions. So let me thank Dawn, Paid Enthusiast, James, and Kathy for all their wonderful questions. I will be available again, and if necessary, we can even prolong and multiply these live sessions to help everyone answering these questions. Thank you again. Tune in to us again, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, next Thursday, the 21st. And remember, increase your tolerance for yourself and others. Do some self-care. Appreciate these times. It is time for appreciation and gratitude. And I'm grateful for you. Have a good day.